Welcome back to Universe. I'm Andrew, and today I'm playing Disoville Heroes. So this is the Community Anthology Volume 1 book from the Game Crafter. Who knows if there will ever be a Volume 2. This is the result of a contest they ran a while back, a year or so ago, and I submitted 2 entries. I didn't win. However, all of the entries who volunteered to do so were included in this book. None of the creators or the Game Crafter itself makes a profit off of this. I put that in quotes because I'm sure the Game Crafter as a company does make some money off of sales of this, but it is the minimum price possible. And on top of that, it is currently on sale, which makes me question the idea of minimum price possible, but it is their New Year's sale going on now. So I figured I would feature one, maybe both of my games, but just one today. We're going to do Disoville Heroes. Actually, just a second. We could take a look just so you get an idea of what is in this book. There are 78 games. Here's my face is probably covering some of those, but every page spread is a different game that you will have, including all of the rules, and all of the games use the same components, or rather, at least some of the same components. No game is allowed to require any components that aren't included with the book, which is going to be this bag of stuff, including a bunch of the stuff you see here, and some more stuff that's going to come out during the gameplay. So the game plays 2 or 3 players. Each player will take on the role of one of these 3 heroes. I wanted to have a solo mode, but there's really just not enough room for the rules on that, so I never quite finished designing how the solo mode might work. So I'll just do a full 3-player game, and each of the heroes is going to be fighting crime that appears in the city. So in order to set up the game, I'm going to do some what are called big spawns to spawn crime out in the city. So I'm going to roll 1d6 and then a second one, and I got 4 and a 2, which corresponds to this space here, which means a lieutenant is going to appear in this space, lieutenant represented by the red disc. And then in each of the adjacent spaces that are streets and not these buildings, I'm going to put a minion represented by a red cube. And if you can see these blue lines here, these yellow lines, and these white lines, you'll see that the city is separated into 3 sections, 1 for each player. Each player is allowed to fight crime in any of those sections, but there are bonuses and certain effects that refer to the sections. So the setup rules have us do a big spawn in each player's zone. That would be for the blue player. So now I'm going to roll a die, ignoring 3s and 4s just because of how it works. A 2 and a 5 is going to be this space here, and that's actually adjacent to 3 different city street spaces. And now we're just looking for a 5 or 6 for the white player zone, so I'll re-roll anything that isn't a 5 or 6. I could do like a shortcut, but probably end up doing shortcuts later, but for now we'll just do 5 and 4. It's going to be right here. We actually need 4 different minions, and unfortunately the game only comes with 8 cubes of each color, so we have to dip into an extra lieutenant already to complete that spawn, which means white is going to have plenty of crime to solve. Normally the first player would be random, but we're just going to go yellow first. This hero called Rainstone, just because she's on the left, we'll do in that order. And we set up the game by rolling all 6 of the player dice as well. That's a couple of 6s, which is nice, a couple of 5s. And this is a dice drafting action performing game. So players in turn order are going to take a die and perform an action. And there are 3 actions you can take. I don't know if my face is covering that, but we've got fight, train strength, or superpower. So fight can be used with a 1 through 6, and basically you're going to add your own character's strength level to the die result and fight crime with it in order to earn points out on the map. Currently the heroes all have 0 strength, so that's not a super great option. They can train strength with a 1 or a 2, which will raise their strength value, and with a 4 or 3 through 6, they can train up or use a superpower. So at the bottom of the map, you can see this unfortunately titled Power Track. It's actually supposed to be the Strength Track. This is tracking the player's strength. I should have started each hero with a 0 here with their discs, and they also start with 0 victory points. So that will be the strength rating that we check when they want to fight. If they were to gain 1 strength, they would go from the 0 tier up to the 1 tier. If they gain another one, they'll go up to the 2 tier. If they gain a 3rd strength, they'll still be at 2 strength, even though they're at the next 3rd position on the track, or 4th if you count 0 anyway. So not every increase yields an actual strength increase, but it caps out at 5. And you can also see on this crime chart how much strength is required to defeat each enemy, with some caveats that we'll get to, I'm sure, and we'll cover that later. So this is Rainstone, a close-up on her, and I think she's actually going to use the train superpower ability action that we just looked at briefly. And she's going to do this one here. It requires a 5. So we're going to grab the yellow 5 from the dice tray. And she's going to claim that die in order to use this action. So if she wanted to take the 6 instead, for example, though, she would have to train the Royal Sidekick. This power can't be used because not both of these boxes aren't both filled in yet. So she would use a 6 in order to fill in one box. On a future action, if she had another 6, she could fill in the second box. At that point, once both boxes are filled in, she would have access to this passive ability. If she were to train with 4s, again, first box would fill in on the first action, second box would fill in the second time she used that action with a 4, and the next time and for the rest of the game, every time she used a 4, she could use it in action to defeat a villain. Villain is a red meeple, which is the stronger version of crime. But she's not training. She's going to use an action that is fully trained already from the start of the game because it has no box requirements, and that is to train strength twice. And as we saw, that just means she's going to move her yellow disc 2 spaces up, and now she has 2 strength. That was her whole turn. So we go on to Thunderclap, the blue player, who can draft a die. Now, Rainstone took a yellow die, and she's the yellow player. I didn't really mention that until now, but the players can draft any die they want, with the side effect of when you take someone else's color, that player whose die you took gets 2 points. So you can do whatever you want, but you might want to choose your own color just so you don't give away points. Maybe thematically you're asking them for help or something and giving them more prestige in the city. Oops, and I kept my example 6, but actually Rainstone took a 5. So let's take a look at Thunderclap. I think he's also going to take a 5, and he happened to roll one of his color. And just like Rainstone, this is a pre-trained ability. He gets to train strength. Or actually, no, he kind of wants a 6. You know what? For the sake of, I think 5 is a pretty good move, but for the sake of having some fun, let's try to max out Sound Speed Flurry this game, because this is kind of a combo building up ability. So he's going to take Rainstone's yellow 6, and that means she's going to get 2 points. I'm going to move that now on the track, and he's going to get to put 1 cube into his 6 ability, Sound Speed Flurry. Nothing else happens for now. It's just trained up. And next is Infrared, who actually has this Infrared Bombs ability, which means they have 6 bombs. And they start with 3 of them ready to go, and 3 more off to the side, maximum of 6. And their 3 and 4 ability can put bombs out onto the map and blow up enemies. But for now, I think they actually are going to use Laser Onslaught. They're going to draft their own white 6 that got rolled in order to train up Laser Onslaught. Again, it is now available for use, but for now they've just trained it, not actually used it. And now for her second action, we're going back to Rainstone. She cannot draft a yellow die because there are no yellow dice remaining. And she's decided to take this white 4. So I'm going to give 2 points to Infrared here off screen because she took the white die from them. And she's going to do the fight action because she is now trained. She has 2 strength. And she's going to add her 2 strength to the 4 that she's using for a total of 6 fight strength. The first step is to choose a contiguously adjacent group of crime. So for example, this is next to this, which 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 is next to both of these. This is not adjacent to them because it's diagonal. So there's kind of 2 separate groups going on here. And just because of the way they spawned, 2 of those spawns ended up being contiguously adjacent into one group. So she's going to choose that group. And now she's going to start fighting them 1 cube at a time. A minion costs 2 fight strength to defeat, but if it's not next to an empty street space, like this is next to 2 empty street spaces, this isn't next to any, this isn't next to any, this is actually next to 1. But if it's not next to an empty street space, it costs an extra fight strength to defeat. So this minion would cost 2, this minion would cost 3. Lieutenants cost 5 fight strength to defeat. So in theory, she could defeat that one. It is also next to an empty street space, so there's no penalty there, but there's also a penalty of 1 fight strength per lower level enemy next to the one you're fighting. So because this lieutenant is surrounded by his minions, he's getting +3 fight strength to defeat. So that would be 8 if she wanted to fight him. With 6, that's not going to be an option, so she's going to have to clear some minions. And she's decided to clear these 2. So neither of them was next to an empty street space, so they both cost an extra fight strength. So instead of 2, it's 3. Let's just go ahead and look at that crime chart. So minion costs 2 fight strength to defeat. She beat 2 of them for a total of 4 fight strength plus 1 and 1 for each of them. Because of the street situation, each of them yields 1 victory point, but there's a ZB, a zone bonus, of +1 for each of them. So she actually gets 4 victory points. The zone bonus comes from the fact that they were in her zone, in her yellow zone. So she thought about clearing out this guy to kind of come in that direction. Maybe do this guy, then this guy, and then maybe get to the lieutenant eventually. But because this would not give her a zone bonus, she would have ended up spending 2, 4, and then having nothing to spend her remaining fight strength on. Because I guess she could have fought this one with 2 more because it's also next to streets. But that would have yielded, but these are not in her zone. So that would have been 1, 2, 3, 4 points, which is the same as what she got. And she would have been denying points from the blue player by doing that though. But there's also the fact that the more minions and you leave in your zone, the more likely they are to upgrade into tougher enemies later. So it might make sense to just clear them out while you can. So let's stick with that thematic option for now. So she goes from 2 up to 6 victory points in the lead. Thunderclap is next, and their only dice remaining are blue, so he won't be giving any points to anybody. He does not have very high strength, so he's going to take this 5 and use this superpower action, train strength, or train any superpower and then fight for +2 strength. So I forgot how strong that ability is. So I guess that he probably should have just done that from the beginning, because he gets to train any superpower and fight for 2 plus the strength of the die he took, which is 5. So he gets to fight for 7. Oh, sorry, not the strength of the die. He gets to fight for 2 plus his strength, which is 0. So not quite as exciting. But 2 fight strength will let him clear out this minion, and that will give him 2 points. 1 for the minion, and 1 for the zone bonus. Finally, infrared only has 1 die to take, and it's going to be this 1. It's blue, so blue gets 2 points up to 4. Really, the only thing to do is to train. They could fight for 1, but that doesn't beat anything, so white will just move their strength up once. That ends the first round. We go into this next round with rolling all of the dice and the red dice. Thunderclap will be the first player this round. Go ahead and roll up the player dice first, although I guess I should have done these first because we need to roll 1 at a time. We got a 4 and a 4, and this is a little spawn, so we're just placing a single minion on the 4/4 space, which just got cleared out. But we actually do a little spawn for each player. So we're going to do 3. That's on 2/4. So this space also gets its minion back. And finally, 5/4, which means a villain has already appeared because this is 5/4 here. There's already a lieutenant. So the lieutenant is replaced by a villain. Very hard to beat. They have 10 fight strength. Dice are a bit lower this time. We got a lot of 2s and a 1, a couple of 6s though, and Thunderclap gets first pick. Okay, and this is pretty embarrassing, especially since I'm the one who made this game, but it has been a while. I totally forgot to activate the buildings at the end of the round. So at the end of each round, you sum the 2 dice that you claimed, that you drafted, and activate the appropriate building. So Rainstone drafted a 5 and a 4. 5 and 4 add up to 9. Which means she activates the stadium and trains strength. So I'm going to move her up 1 more. She's still at 2 strength, but 1 away from the 3 strength threshold. Thunderclap, the blue player, took a 5 and a 6. That adds up to 11. So he gets to activate City Hall. So he gains 2, 4, 5 points up to 9. It's a big jump. And Infrared drafted a 1 and a 6. Unfortunately, the average of 7. Oh, no, sorry, a 6 and a 2, which is 8. They activate the hospital and gain 2 victory points up to 4. So the dice you draft are important not just for what you want to do, but for what building you would like to use. And the drafting is pretty important because you have to watch out for what your opponents are going to be able to do as well. I think blue got off to a really strong start here, and there are a lot of high number dice, and they got 2 of them to activate the most powerful building, or arguably the topmost building. The gym up here is also very strong. It lets you train your bottommost open cube icon. So basically your bottommost power gets a cube in it, and that's activated on a 2 or 3. So now we'll go ahead and start the round, and Thunderclap will claim the blue 6, meaning he gets to use Sound Speed Flurry. It's fully trained up because of the 2 cubes, and so as an action he's going to perform any combination of non-training actions. So he cannot raise his strength, with a combined dice requirements of 5 plus the number of cubes here, which is 2, so total of 7. I do think he's going to have to raise his strength at some point. And if he can't train, Can't train a power, can't train strength, so I guess he's just fighting for 7. It's not as exciting as I thought. But he can spend 2, 4, 6 fight strength to fight those 3 minions. They were part of a contiguous group. 2 of them were in his area, so that's 2, 4, 5 points. And he goes up to 14. I think Infrared is going to play it cool, and they're just going to draft this 1 to train up and bring their fight strength up to 2. That will guarantee them getting to go to the gym, unless they get stuck with this 6, but they can't get stuck with it because Rainstone is last. Speaking of Rainstone, I think she will take the 6. She wants to start training up her royal sidekick, and now Thunderclap only has 2s to choose from. And I think being in the lead, he's actually going to take the white 2 in order to give Infrared 2 points and force someone else to take his die so that he can increase the speed at which we end the game, which happens once somebody has 45 or more victory points. A 2 means his fight strength is increased, or his strength rather. Infrared will bite the bullet and take that to give him 2 more points. Thunderclap goes from 14 up to 16 points, but the track only goes to 15. For every 15 VP you have, leave a disc here and then use another disc for future points. So we'll mark that 16th point with the second blue disc. That is a training action for Infrared, who now goes up to meet Rainstone's fight strength. She will take a 2 and raise her fight strength as well. She's now up into the 3 bracket. And the round, Thunderclap gets an 8 to activate the hospital for 2 more points. Infrared has a 3, which activates the gym. Train your bottommost open cube icons. They get to train up this passive ability, which is once per round. After selecting a 1 or a 2, you can add 2 to it before choosing an action. So they can treat 1s and 2s as 3s and 4s respectively. And Rainstone has a 6 and a 2 for a total of 8. Hospital gives 2 points, bringing her up to 8. I think we'll go ahead and roll up the next round of spawns before re-rolling the hero dice, but something has changed from the previous round, which is that Thunderclap has a disc in the 15 plus section, and it says in the rules, which I wrote a long time ago, for each disc on the 15 plus VP space, upgrade one of the little spawns to a big spawn. A big spawn means that the placed piece is a lieutenant instead of a minion, and the adjacent city or road spaces get filled in with minions. So 6-2 gets a lieutenant, but there's already a lieutenant there, so we just upgrade it to the maximum possible level. There's only one adjacent space, and that adjacent space already has a villain in it, so there are now 2 villains instead of 1, but that big spawn wasn't as big as it could have been. 2 more little spawns, 3, 6 is way over here, and 1, 2 right there. So white has a lot of crime to fight, just waiting for them. Let's see if they're able to get there. And it is their turn to go first. We got a few high value dice this time. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6. I think it is time for a laser onslaught. So they fight with fight strength 6 plus their strength, which is now 2. So a total of 8 plus 2 6-sided dice, and then lose a cube from here. So they're going to have to retrain the laser onslaught. But that's going to be 8 plus 2d6. Ooh, low roll. It's still a 12 though. A villain costs 10. This villain is not adjacent to any empty city spaces, so that's a +1, but they're also not adjacent to any lower ranking crime because they're next to another villain. So they got this villain in a bit of a loophole, and for 11 crime, they can fight this villain, or for 11 fight strength rather. That leaves them with only 1 left over, but I think that's worth it to beat a villain, and villains yield 10 points plus a zone bonus of 3. Oh, sorry, victory points is 8 plus a zone bonus of 3, so plus 11 from 6 is 17. Just behind blue by 1 point, thanks to the laser onslaught. Rainstone's going to take the other 6, which is her own color, to finish training up her sidekick. I forgot for Thunderclap that part of that sound speed flurry ability is to get another cube added on, so it actually has 3 cubes here. It can have up to 5, which increases the potency of that action, but I don't think that's going to be relevant this turn. I think he needs to up his fight strength, so he's just going to train a little bit with that 1. I think Infrared is a bit lucky because this 4 is perfect. They're going to use this 4 superpower action here, place a ready bomb, which they started with 3 ready bombs, in a space without crime, or make 2 of their spent bombs ready. They started with 3 spent bombs as well. But they don't need to tap into that. They're going to place a ready bomb in a space without crime, which is this newly vacated space thanks to that villain defeat from laser onslaught. The bomb says that when 3 plus crime or 2 for one-way spaces are in a bomb space and or adjacent, defeat them all, and the bomb is spent. Well, this is a one-way space, so it only needs 2 or more crime adjacent to it. There happens to be 10 crime adjacent to it, because that's how much a villain is worth. Okay, no. The villain is just 1 crime, so it needs both of these spaces need to have crime in it for the bomb to go off. So we're going to leave the bomb there, but if any enemy ends up in this space, that will explode the bomb and take out a villain in 1 hit, which would be quite powerful. So that's a nice spot to put the bomb right next to a villain. It's not super likely, but it could happen. Rainstone is next, and she's going to take her own die this time as well. Her action with a 5, her superpower here is to train strength twice. So she goes up 1, still at 3, and another 1. Now she is in the 4 bracket. 4 fight strength is really nice, especially with sidekick. Hopefully we'll see that soon. And Thunderclap will take the last remaining die, which is a 3. He could either fight with it for 3, 4, 5, or he can start training up this power. I think he will fight. 5 is enough to clear out this lone lieutenant. That's going to be where 3 points plus 2 zone bonus is 5. 2, 4, 5. He's almost lapped Rainstone. Infrared gets to resolve a 10-point building. The 10 building is super high. That's the high school where the superpowered teenagers go. So they will help out by running around town and fighting crime with a fight strength of 7. You don't get to add your own strength to that because that's not you. That's the superpowered teens fighting for you. So with a fight strength of 7, I think Infrared will do maybe just 3, 6 for 4 points. Rainstone has an 11, which is going to be 5 points. She needed that. Almost got 1 disc here. And Thunderclap gets a 4, which is the TGC news station, which is the same, which says the same as Stalmart, but twice. Stalmart being the 7, which says move a crime to an adjacent street space without crime, and I'll get to do that twice. So I think Thunderclap is going to steal this lieutenant from Rainstone and try to claim that zone bonus. So the city's starting to clear out a bit, but now we're going to go do 3 more spawns, and because there's 2 discs, 2 of them are going to be big spawns. So let's see, we get 2, 6. That's a lieutenant here, which is going to put a minion here and upgrade this lieutenant into a villain. So Thunderclap's little gambit may not have paid off. Then again, if he can beat the villain, that could be worth it. Get another big spawn at 5, 4, which is actually right here, this villain spot. Holy cow. So the villain can't upgrade, but we still need to place crime next to it. This one's going to swap out, and this minion is placed in this space, which triggers that bomb immediately, blowing up both of these. This is going to go to the spent bombs pile. That is 8, 9 points plus 3, 4 more for zone bonus. That's 13 points. So that's going to be another disc. We've already started the spawn, so I'm not going to change that 3rd small spawn into a big spawn. We'll just do the normal small spawn at 1, 3, which is right up here. So that bomb for Infrared hugely paid off. Rainstone is super far behind. She's going to be up first this round. In round 4, let's see if any of that training can pay off. But her dice are really small. Can she afford to pay other people points? She doesn't have to pay it, but to be giving points to other players by taking their dice. Her fight strength is 4, and the royal sidekick says when you fight, either add your strength again or make a separate fight with fight strength equal to your strength. So your sidekick can run off and do a, in this case, 4 strength fight, or the sidekick can stick with you and just add another 4. So if she wanted to take one of her own dice, for example, she could fight with a 6, make that a 10. She could get a chunk of points. If she's willing to let somebody else get 2 points, she could fight with something bigger. This would be a total fight of 14. I think she might do that. So we're going to give Thunderclap 2 points, putting him up to 27. And she's got a fight strength of 6, 10, 14. What we're just going to do, we're going to send the sidekick separately. So we're going to choose this group here as a contiguous group. And our sidekick is going to go over here and fight with 4. So 2, 4. And then with the 10, she can do 2, 4, plus 5 is 9. Just waste 1. Lieutenant is 3 plus 2 zone bonus, so that's 5, 7, 9, 11, 13 points. And finally, she is on the 15-point team. So that was Rainstone. And she's also completely cleared her section of crime which is a special rule. Whenever a player's zone is empty, that player gains 3 points and then performs a big spawn. So hopefully I didn't miss that at some point. I definitely forgot about it until now. I hope this is the first time it's happened, but 3 more points will tie her up with Thunderclap. And then we immediately do a big spawn. So we need a 1 or a 2 as a first die. So I'm just going to do 1 through 3 as a 1, 4 through 6 is a 2. This will be a 2 and 2. Big spawn is going to put a lieutenant here, minions here, and this villain cannot get any bigger. I'm realizing a rules issue, not really an issue, but a question of what did I mean? Because it says non-training action, so I've been playing it as though he cannot also do superpower training, because of the very explicit use of the word train. Basically just leaves using superpowers and fighting. So being able to do multiple fights is nice. And if he had trained this first power here, he could use that power multiple times potentially as well, which is also really cool. But that requires a lot of training, which he hasn't done, which is probably why these 5s are so valuable for him, where you can train strength or a superpower and then fight for 2+ strength. There's a 5 here, but I don't think he can afford to give points to Infrared at this point. I think he's just going to take his own die. He will use Sound Speed Flurry, perform any combination of non-training actions. Combined dice requirements 5 plus the number of cubes. There are 3 cubes, so that's 8. It will then get another cube, but for now we're going to do 8, any number of actions. And this is another rules issue, which is definitely not what I meant. Technically, he could do 8 1-die fight actions, and fight actions add your strength, so he could fight 8 times with 3 strength each, which is definitely not intended. You wouldn't be able to combine those to beat lieutenants and villains, but you'd still be able to cheese that pretty hard. So that is an issue of playtesting and also not having enough room on the page here. The intention there would be that he can fight up to 8 and he can split it how he wants without having to worry about groups, because he's super fast, he can go everywhere. So we're going to go 2, 4, 6, 8. Only one of those one is in his zone. So 1, 2, 3, 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Puts him up to 32 to Infrared's 34 and Rainstone's 27. But it doesn't quite clear out the blue zone or the white zone. Infrared is super tempted to prep up another laser onslaught. They could also make some more bombs or train, or they could just fight. I think that makes sense to just fight. So they're going to take the 6, partially just because it's the best die and prevents anybody else from getting that 6. Plus their fight strength of 2 is 8. 5 of that to fight this lonely lieutenant. 2 of that to pick off a minion from the side there. Oh no, they can't split their attack. So they would have to fight this group and clear out Rainstone's enemies. They wanted the bonus. So you know what? Let's make a laser onslaught. There's not a lot of crime left and not a lot of great options for Rainstone. She could just train. The 5 is nice. That'll give her 2 more advancements with her power here. Still not at the 5 threshold though. And that would give Infrared 2 points. So I think she's actually going to take this 1. A 7 is also going to let her trigger the Stallmart at the end of the round. And if this villain is still here and this space is empty, she can take the villain from Thunderclap, claim those points. But for now, she's just going to use that 1. She's going to use it to fight with her sidekick. That's still a 9. 2 to fight the minion leaves 7, and 5 to fight this lieutenant leaves 2, which she'll waste. That gives her 7 more points with the zone bonuses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and she's actually in the lead now. That was her own die, so she doesn't have to give anybody points, and now Thunderclap has to give somebody points, and he's actually trailing a bit. But if he takes the 5, that will let him trigger City Hall. Oh, and I totally forgot, that triggered Rainstone clearing her section again for 3 more points, and we have to do this again. So high roll or low, 1, oops, 1, 2, it's right here. She's got plenty of crime for next time. Pretty sure Thunderclap has to take the 5, because that's going to give him the City Hall, which means Infrared gets 2 points. The question is, what is he going to do with it? If he fights for 5 plus his 2 strength, that's 7. Cannot beat the villain. Could take out some of Rainstone's minions. Steals her zone bonus, but gets her closer to clearing her zone again. Probably makes sense just to use this 5 power. He trains strength, and still at 2 though, and then, or any superpower, but I think it's a little late for that, and then fight for 2 plus strength. Strength is still 2, so he fights for 4, and he can take out these 2 minions. This one's actually not adjacent to an empty city street space, so it wouldn't costs an extra one. So he just gets 2 points for the 2 minions. Then Infrared will have to take this, which gives Rainstone 2 points. A 2, they can use it as a 4, or they'd actually add 2 to it, so it would actually become a 4, which would mean they can trigger at the 10 building, which is super high, or unless they really want the hospital for 2 points. But I think they'll take it as the 4, fight with it with plus their strength of 2, so 6, and they'll waste 1 fighting this lieutenant for 3 plus his own bonus of 2, which is 5, plus they cleared their zone, so 8 points for white. 2, 4, 6, 8. Puts them 44, 1 point away from triggering the game end, but I have a feeling it's going to end anyway because we trigger a big spawn. We'll do high or low for 5 or 6. Low is going to be 5 and 1. Means a lieutenant spawns here and a minion spawns in the only space next to it. That ends the drafting round. So we activate building abilities. Rainstone gets the 7. She does get to trigger a move. She can steal that villain, but should she? Because that actually clears out Thunderclap's zone, but he doesn't have as many points. Question is, does Rainstone realize the game's about to end? But it doesn't matter, whoever she moves. Theoretically, she can hose Infrared a little bit by moving that. Thunderclap gets an 11, so he gets to trigger City Hall. Maybe he makes an appearance in front of the people, and he gets to score 5 points for that. Bringing him up to 39, and Infrared gets a 10, triggering super high, which means some superpowered teens will go out and fight with a fight strength of 7. They could have defeated the minion and the lieutenant with 7, but instead, because Rainstone caused some traffic jams, split the crime up, and now that superpowered teens can only find the lieutenant, which will score Infrared 3 plus a bonus of 2, 5 more points, up to 49. Which means the current round is the final round. If it had happened earlier in the round, players might see it coming and you can play your last turn or two accordingly. But as it is, it triggered during the building activation step. But yeah, if Rainstone hadn't split that crime up, the super high students would have been able to beat that whole little cluster, giving Infrared 2 more points for the minion, plus another 3 for clearing the zone again. But nonetheless, they're the winner with 49. Rainstone had 40, and Thunderclap had 39. So kind of close. Infrared definitely got lucky with a bomb earlier. In terms of the bombs didn't get used much, but neither did any of the heroes' 3 and 4 powers. Like, all of this stuff is empty, and bombs were not getting placed. We only used a single bomb, which is super interesting because I felt like I rolled a lot of 5s, 6s, 1s, and 2s, very few 3s and 4s, which is the dice you want to see for those middle powers to happen. So the game, I guess, can play out pretty differently. Kind of surprised it was just really not that many 3s and 4s, or by the time we did get them, we were just fighting with them, I suppose. But yeah, the high dice early let the heroes power up their stuff. I think Thunderclap got a nice lead, but kind of, I guess I forgot how to play this character a little bit, and maybe needed that first power to be active. That lets him fight everyone in a line with a fight strength of 2 plus his strength. So regardless of like clusters, he could just streak across and fight in that way. And with Sound Speed Flurry, he could do that multiple times, which is kind of the intention of the kit, I think. You need to have the line ability before you start going fast and furious. But anyway, that's Disoville Heroes. If you're interested, it is in the Community Anthology Volume 1, which again is currently on sale in the Game Crafter. I mean, on sale. It's available for purchase all the time, but it's on sale now, the 2023 New Year's sale. I'll admit it is a bit pricey. If you saw this game and you're like, that's a cool game, but it's, obviously a small game. And this book, I think it is still like $40 or something. So it's a big price point for if you only wanted this game. But again, you get all of these games, not just the one. See, Disoville Heroes is here. I also designed Bugwood, but there's all the rest, including the winner of the competition, Zombo Nation, which you can see here. So it's a cool little thing to just put the components in the bag, carry the book with you, and you can play anything in the whole book. If you really just want to play Disoville Heroes, I've thought about making it a free print and play download or something, but I'd probably just put it up as is rather than putting any more work into it necessarily, despite some of the confusion and rules quirks that we might have seen during the playthrough. Anyway, thanks for watching this far. Subscribe so we can get more subscribers, and bye.